So, very good afternoon, everybody. Voice is going or not? Let us check. Okay, so this is the third day of our presentation. Semester 2 students are making their presentations, and this season will run from 11th to 15th of March. We are on the midway, third day of these presentations. In this evening session, the presentations on American literature will be made by the students. Let us have a quick view of the list of the students and the topics on which they are going to make presentations. Okay, so first we will have Aarti Sarvaiya reading presentation on comparison between Robert Frost and William Wordsworth as a nature poets. So we are trying to read them as nature poets. Anjali will make presentation on critical analysis of Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken. Avani will be on literary allusions in Long Day's Journey into Night. Bhavyata on the role of addiction in A Long Day's Journey into Night. Drashti will make presentation on Hemingway's Iceberg theory, followed by Gayatri's on significance of the appearance of fog in Long Day's Journey into Night. Ghanshyam will read on Robert Jordan as a typical Hemingway hero. Gopi's presentation on major leaders of the Transcendentalist movement. Hetal's on O'Neill's use of naturalistic dialogue in the play. In one play or many plays are you going to take? With reference to, I think, Long Day's Journey into Night. And last one will be by Hina on Transcendentalism and Indian philosophy. Indian philosophy and religion, you want to say? I think. Yeah. Okay, so let us start with the first presentation. Aarti, you can share the screen and start. Problem?
She is not selecting the entire screen, so please continue.
So learn this, so the next time there is no mistake. अपने secretary तरीके से ही रह क्या कि बता बदल जावे आरंभ even Bhavyata also मैंने secretary तरीके रह को ये याद करावे तो सी मारे तो काम करवाना without reminder you have to remember the things and complete your tasks मैं जिधर बताने पर तुम्हारे मदद करवानी you just stand and don't learn anything and expect के जिधर काम करे मेहनत करे. Yes, share your screen.
Hello everyone, I am Aarti Sarvaiya. Today is the third day of semester 2's presentation in which we are going to make presentation on paper number 108 in which I am going to deal with this topic comparison between Robert Frost and William Wordsworth as a nature poet. This is my personal information. Points to ponder about Robert Frost and William Wordsworth. Robert Frost and William Wordsworth as a nature poet. William Wordsworth's view towards the nature. and Robert Frost's view towards nature, then conclusion and then references. First, about Robert Frost and William Wordsworth. Robert Lee Frost was an American poet known for his realistic depiction of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. Frost frequently wrote about the setting of rural life in New England in the early 20th century. Frost is the only poet who received four Pulitzer Prize for his poetry. He was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his poetic work. On July 22, 1961, Frost was named as a poet laureate of Vermont. On the other side, William Wordsworth was an English romantic poet who, with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, helped to launch the Romantic Age in English literature with their joint publication Lyrical Ballad in 1798. He is the major figure who he is with with uh, uh, with collaboration of Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He launched first lyrical ballad uh, and with that work the romantic age was started, and his other work is the prelude, a romantic epic poem which is also is autobiographical poem of him, which this poem chronicling the growth of poet's mind. Wordsworth was poet laureate from 1843 until his death. He is remembered as a poet of spiritual and epistemological speculation, a poet concerned with a human relationship to the nature and fierce advocate of using vocabulary and speech pattern of common people in poetry. Let us see what is the difference between Robert Frost and William Wordsworth in concept of nature. Both poets sees nature in different ways, although there are some aspects of subject which clearly the same. As a poet of nature, Wordsworth is a high priest of nature. As we know that he always worshipping nature, and he always shows the good side of nature. And whereas the Frost's attitude towards nature is sometimes described as a modern. For both poets, nature brings the same thing, yet in very different way. Freud maintains artistic detachment from his writing, while Wordsworth clearly involves himself in the subject matter of his poetry. Frost is deceptively plain, whereas Wordsworth is genuinely simple. Frost is pragmatic, worldly, and anti-romantic. On the other side, Wordsworth is transcendentalist, romantic, and mystics. Frost viewed nature as something that is related to divine, while Wordsworth and other romantic poets simply enjoyed nature and viewed it as a source of inspiration. Wordsworth's view towards nature. Wordsworth mostly writes his poem with the use of imagination. With the help of imagination, Wordsworth makes common things unique and beautiful. Wordsworth wants to show that nature has a great healing power through which a man can get freedom from his suffering. Through his imagination, he feels existence of nature when he is far away from the nature. Wordsworth wants to represents the importance of nature in human life. Nature gives utmost influence on human being. A good relationship with nature supports men to connect both spiritual to social world. In Prelude, he says that love of nature can be lead to love of human being. In Solitary Reaper, which is the very well-known poetry written by Wordsworth, Wordsworth gives definition of natural woman who connects herself to nature by working out in the field. It seems that she is more a part of nature than humanity. So it can be observed that he has created environment in his poem precisely. In this poem, he describes how beautiful the the nature and how sees the nature. He defines in his poem. Robert Frost's view towards nature. Robert Frost always discussed two sides of nature. He explains how beautiful and attractive nature is, or how destructive it can be. Through nature, he expresses his personal view in his poems. Through his poetry, he personified the simple life of people in complex way. His poem seems simple on the surface, but they have deep significance. He shows deep insight into instincts of man. Apart from that, his poem gives message to his reader in a clear way. For example, in stopping by woods on a snowy evening, in this poem he describes that how the nature is beautiful and how attractive it is. But at the ending part of this, he reminds that he has promises to keep, and he has to go further, and despite he has to leave that scenario, and he has to go for his other works, and this shows that he has chosen theme of nature in precise manner. In conclusion, so Frost has enough capability to explain the deepest nature and humanity in same manner, and to disclose tidbits of philosophy about man's life in simply as every mood. It is easy to read his poetry, but it gives always deep meaning. Frost does not formulate a vital continuity between man and nature. Nature has a little informative appeal to Frost. His poetry can be considered with the role of man in nature, not the view of natural world. On the other side, Wordsworth and Frost represent an amazing creative power of poetic imagination through their eminent work. In their works, they are often seen exploiting nature to describe the beauty of scenario. Mm, this is the references, and thank you. Now, have you any question? Then you can ask me.
Aarti, my question is, what are some similarities and differences in the language and imagery used by Wordsworth and Frost in their concept of nature?
Wordsworth and Wordsworth and Robert Frost seems nature in different way, uh, but they use and uh, vivid imagery and natural and simple language in their poetry and works.
This people can network failure. So
Aarti, my question is, how do Wordsworth and Frost view the relationship between human and nature in their poetry?
Wordsworth shows that the relationship between nature and human are he depicts man in a nature as a source of nature, and when on the other side Frost is differentiate the nature and nature and uh, nature and human that they both are very different and they are both are different and he he defines him in a separately. Thank you. Good afternoon to all. On the date of 13th March, I am going to present on my presentation topic critical analysis of Robert Frost's poem The Road Not Taken. This is my personal information. Points to ponder about the poet, about the poem, analysis of the poem, conclusion, and references. About the poet, Robert Frost was born 1874 San Francisco in California and died in 1963. In full name, Robert Lee Frost was an American poet who was much admired for his depictions of the rural life of New England and his command of American colloquial speech and his realistic works portraying ordinary people in everyday situations. Frost is found profound ironist, a creator of metaphor who paradoxically teaches that the real world may be preferable to imaginative creation because the fictional world may lead to delusion, even madness. Mr. Frost's personal attitude, if we may believe his poetry, is much the same. He would probably to himself, I am a specimen farmer, teacher, traveler, citizen, poet, and I haven't enough of anything to sell, but I have got a few mountains and valleys inside of me, and a bit of sea to look at rest. I am headed for something somewhere, and I am bound to keep going. About the poem. The poem was published in the Atlantic Monthly in August 1915 and used in his collection Mountain Internal. uh, it is written in iambic tetrameter. It employs an ABAB rhyme scheme in each of its four stanzas. Frost's inspiration for the poem is generally accepted to be his friend and fellow poet Edward Thomas. During the time during the time Frost lived in England, the two would often go for walks led by Thomas. Frost comment about the poem, the importance he always placed on a metaphor and his careful word choices throughout the poem direct us to do so. What's more, as a result of those efforts, the apparent contradiction we initially see disappears. His supposition is that the poet is reflecting on a human tendency to seek and see patterns by which we give meaning and order to our lives. The poems was mistakenly construed to affirm the importance of nonconformist individualism by taking the lesser traveled road. It is new expected to be heard as a poem exposing man's self-deception and tendency to rationalization. Analysis of the poem. The road not taken is simply a poem about individualism, and the poem was published in 1915. Uh, this poem about having taken a road favor have traveled. The poem has remained an enigma. If it is not a poem about roads that are markedly different, then it should not follow that taking one road would be of greater impact than taking the other. Yet that claim is made, and we are left with the question of Frost's intention in presenting us with what appears to be a rather obvious contradiction. The same idea when he argues that the poem is not a salute to can-do individualism, but rather one that parodies the self deception we practice when constructing the story of our own lives. Frost's attitude toward Thomas' tendency to belabor and regret his choices may have been inspired by the poem. The poem is not limited to or by these circumstances. The road that is not taken is the one the speaker has looked down with such care. There is no indication that he looks down the other road as well. The situation in the first stanza shows the speaker contemplating one road. Frost's poem has less to do with the nature of the actual road we choose, but more with the nature of our relationship to time while considering the very roads we were traveling, what we do with each moment while on the road. The in the road not taken, the choice the speaker makes between stanza 1 and stanza 2 is to focus on the here and now. The meaning of I took the one less traveled would have been sufficient and even more forceful, since the spoken stress would have fallen more naturally on the less than it does now on the by. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. In this poem we can see that there are use of repetitions of the word I. The repetitions of the I makes the whole thing more expressive and heartfelt, and a high tone of poignant enunciation that really makes all the difference. The stops the speaker's forward-looking flow and forces him to come back to himself in that moment to be present. The choice that has made all the difference is the choice to not hurry through the life towards the future, passing by the present without notice, but rather to live in the present moment. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. The sigh that it begins the final stanza happens in an undefined somewhere, but is a doubly emphasized time. Frost chooses to use the phrase ages and ages, bringing to mind an extremely long period of time. Uh, Born in 1874, 74, Frost was over 40 years old when the road not taken first appeared in print. And although he lived to be 88, the average lifespan of a man in his early 20s at the turn of the century was 61.
to add to the sense created in the poem of more than simply years or decades passing. Frost ends the line with the word hence. The word hence here Frost uses hence in definitions in archaic language. Archaic language definition of hence is from this word or from the living. Conclusion: the road not taken had he meant it as a contradiction, a parody about a friend, or a poem on self deception. The poem leads us to what Frost wanted us to understand if we choose to take our time with both our lives and his poetry. Here are the references, and if any have any question, then ask me.
Anjali, what is your view? What is the speaker's attitude towards the choice which he has to make?
The speaker's attitudes towards the choice which he has to make, uh, as I mentioned in my slide, the speaker attitudes towards the choice which he has to make is to attitude which he has to make is ambivalent. It is a complex, it is a complexity.
Anjali, my question is, what is Robert Frost's personal attitude in his poem, The Road Not Taken?
Sorry, I don't aware about it. I will give an answer in the comment.
So asking question also, like you use this marker that you have mentioned this on your slide. Depending on that, you are asking something. So frame your question. Don't just throw question out of anything. So what is say? Connect with that and say that this is what you are trying to ask. So there's also to learn how to ask questions. You are also learning how to ask questions.
Very good noon to you all. I'm Avani Jani, and today I'm going to deal with the topic literary allusions in a long day's journey into night. Here is the roadmap of my presentation. First one is Shakespeare. Here I am discussing about the literary allusion which have taken by Eugene O'Neill on in his play Long Day's Journey into Night. The first and most prominent character and the very inspirational character came in this play is Shakespeare's quote: "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings." In Long Day's Journey into Night, the character Edmund Tyrone makes a reference to this line in Act 3, Scene 1. Edmund uses this quote to express his belief that people are responsible for their own actions and decisions, rather than being controlled by fate or external forces. He says, "I am sick of the past and all its memories. If it's the past, that's no blame, that's to blame, then let's go into the future with a new spirit of hope. The fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves. The quote also highlights the idea that the character in the play are trapped by their own weakness and flaws, which prevent them from achieving happiness and fulfillment. Overall, the reference to Julius Caesar and this particular quote reinforces the theme of personal responsibility and the struggle to overcome one's own limitations. Othello. Second reference came to this play is Othello. The praise Edwin Booth gave my Othello. In Act 4, the character James Tyrone recalls a conversation he had with Edwin Booth, a famous Shakespearean actor, about his portrayal of Othello. James tells his family, I remember Edwin Booth's praise of my Othello. He said it was the best he had ever seen, and he had seen the greatest Othello of his time. The reference to Edwin Booth's praise of James Tyrone's Othello is significant because it highlights James' past success as an actor. As we all know that James Tyrone was a great actor in his old days, and he was very attached to the theater. And whoever is very attached and very close to the theater are very inspired by Shakespeare, as we all know that Shakespeare is the greatest dramatist ever. James had a promising career in the theater, but he became trapped in a cycle of performing the same popular role, Edmund Kean's portrayal of Richard III, to the detriment of his artistic growth and reputation. The memory of Booth's praise also reveals James' desire for recognition and validation as an actor. Despite his past success, James is haunted by the fear that he will never be able to escape his typecasting and achieve the artistic greatness he craves. Here, I would like to mention the Bollywood, that many Bollywood actors are not like to very happy with the background character. They always want to cast in a very they always want to be casted in as a protagonist and as the main hero. So in this situation, James is also desiring about the main hero, and he craves for greatness. Overall, the reference to Edwin Booth's praise of James Tyrone's Othello is a poignant reminder of James' lost and his ongoing struggle with regret and self-doubt. Here comes the Hamlet. Many have been considered the long day's journey into night play is very similar to Hamlet, as many considers this James Tyrone is similar to Hamlet, and the Mary is very similar to the Ophelia. In Act 2 of A Long Day's Journey into Night, the character Edmund Tyrone makes a reference to the mad scene from Shakespeare's play Hamlet. Jamie Tyrone breaks the heavy silence with the words, the mad scene enter Ophelia. The mad scene that Edmund is referring to is the scene in which Ophelia, Hamlet's love interest, goes mad after her father's death and Hamlet's rejection of her. I believe that Edmund's reference to the mad scene reflects his own sense of despair and isolation. Like Ophelia, Edmund is struggling to come to terms with his own morality and inevitability of his own death. The reference also underscores the universal themes of loss and grief that permeate the play and highlights the way of literature can provide solace and meaning in time of profound sadness and despair. When Mary fell in love and was so happy for a time, she, like Ophelia, talks to herself in her own world about father and lover, and she wanted to get to the nunnery to which Ophelia was sent by Hamlet. Tyrant's reaction to Mary's condition is, "It's a damned position. But I have never known her to drown herself in it as deep as this." Claudius' reaction to Ophelia, "Oh, this is a poison of a deep grief." When we look at the character of Mary, then Mary is a very, very, very deep drowned in the addiction, and the tyrant considers that it is very damned position, and she is drowning in alcohol, and sorry, she is drowning in addiction very deep. In the play, James Tyrant, who studied Shakespeare as you would study the Bible, quotes Shakespeare and only Shakespeare at every opportunity. When we look at that, what background Tyrant is coming from, he is a very famous theater artist, and whoever is very connected with the theater are very inspired to the Shakespeare, and his this statement make Shakespeare God. Studied Shakespeare as you would study the Bible. By comparison, the comparing Bible to Shakespeare is he is considering Shakespeare as a god, and Bible is a reference that he uses to make Shakespeare as god. According to the Norman Berlin, Jamie Tyrone O'Neill's Hamlet in Long Day's Journey into Night, bitter and cynical, his whole life revolves around the condition of his mother. These are the most terrible comments on his mother's dope addiction, as his reference to the mad Ophelia indicates, because he, more than his father and brother, has the greatest dependence on her. His love is greatest, and therefore his disappointment is greatest. Overall, the reference to the mad scene from Hamlet serves as a poignant reminder of the play's enduring relevance and the power of literature to help us confront the most difficult aspects of our lives. Biblical allusions. In Long Day's Journey into Night, the character Mary tells the story of how she considered becoming a nun. When she was younger, she says, "I told Mother Elizabeth I wanted to be a nun, and I remember saying, 'I know that the Blessed Virgin had smiled and blessed me with her constant consent. I never lost my faith in her.'" The reference to the Blessed Virgin in this passage is a biblical allusion to the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus in a Christian tradition. The idea of Mary blessing someone with her consent is a common theme in Catholicism, where Mary is seen as a powerful intercessor between humans and God. The passage also reflects the character of Mary's religious faith and her belief in the possibility of a divine intervention. Like many of the characters in the play, Mary is struggling to find meaning and purpose in her life, and her faith provides her with a sense of comfort and stability. The reference to Blessed Virgin also highlights the theme of family dysfunction in the play. Mary's decision to become a nun may have been motivated by desire to escape the dysfunction of her family and find a sense of purpose and belonging elsewhere. At the convent, I had so many friends. I used to visit them and they would visit me. As per my opinion, while recalling these memories, Mary shows us indirectly that she might have been happy before marriage. She was having friends and living social life happily. So this very sentence is make us believe that when we are connected to the religion and religious practice, then we are very happy and we will have lots of friends. When we stand against the religion, then we would lost friends, and we would also lost from the society. Implicit in this In this is the idea that maintaining a connection with one's religious beliefs can lead to sustained happiness. Here are some dialogues which shows faith of Mary in God. I I knew she heard my prayer and would always love me and see no harm ever came to me. I love Mother Elizabeth better than my own mother. Allusions to modern literature. What were you grinning about the Cheshire cats when you came in? The phrase grinning like Cheshire cat is an allusion to the classic novel Alice and Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. In the story, Alice encounters a grinning Cheshire cat whose smile remains even after his body has disappeared. This reference demonstrates how literary allusions can be used to add depth and complexity to language, allowing us to draw upon the rich history and cultural significance of literary works to enrich our everyday communication. Conclusion. The conclusion that can be drawn from the fact that Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill is a play that contains many literary allusions is that O'Neill was a highly educated and well-read writer who drew inspiration from a variety of literary sources. Help these allusions help to deepen the themes and the characters in the play and provide additional layers of meaning for the audience. To interrupt, they also demonstrate O'Neill's skill as a writer in his ability to weave together different text and ideas to create a cohesive and impactful work of art. Additionally, the use of literary allusion in Long Day's Journey into Night emphasize the play's connections to, to the broader literary canon, positioning as a significant work within the history of drama and literature. Here are my works cited. If there are any question.
Only, my question is you mentioned in your biblical allusions slide, why is it important to understand the literary allusions in long days journey into night?
When we very first look at the whole play, Long Day's Journey into Night, it will not impact that much. But when we look upon the what references he has given in the Long Day's Journey into Night, then we will come to know that it is very deep. And whenever we read it again and again, we will find a very different meanings. That is why I have mentioned earlier that Ophelia's character before reading it differently, I was not aware about the character of comparison of the character of Ophelia and Ophelia to the Mary. But after reading second time, I will come to know that this is like this. So that's how the references impacts the literature.
Okay. How do these allusions that you have mentioned enhance the play's themes and character?
These allusions are very helpful to the play as it has lots of allusions like Hamlet, Othello, and Julius Caesar, and also modern allusions. And there are many philosophies in this play. So while reading with the reference of this, we will come to know that yes, this is this, and it has very deep meaning. So like a character of Ophelia, I have earlier mentioned that after reading as James Tyrion was also a theater artist, that's why also we can see that how Shakespeare has an impact on James Tyrion. So this is how the literary allusions are works uh, uh, in his plays. Thank you.
Have you found this in any article or have you worked out on your own way?
Somehow I have found one article on Chester, and other are uh, I watched a video, and I came to know the idea, and I read it twice, and the article also helped me understanding this way.
The article, what is the reference that you have taken from article?
The
Okay.
of media, yes.
Magazine.
Yes, nice.
That one.
Yes. Very good afternoon to everyone. Today is the third day of our presentation. My presentation topic is the role of addiction in a long day's journey into night. Here is my personal information. Points to ponder upon. The first point is understanding addiction in a long day's journey into night. Here is a sub points: a definition of addiction, types of addiction, portrayal in the play, how addiction is portrayed in the play. The second point is the effect of addiction on the characters, and the third is the impact of addiction on the family, and the fourth point is the role of addiction in the place thing, and the conclusion and book cited. Uh, Author introduction. Eugene, the Long Day's Journey into Night, it is written by Eugene O'Neill, was a prominent American playwright born in 1888. He is known for his realistic portrayals of complex character and use of naturalistic dialogue. He wrote numerous plays, including Long Day's Journey into Night, which is a semi autobiographical work exploring his family's struggles with addiction. His plays were famous for showing real people with complex problems and for using natural sounding words. O'Neill is considered one of the most important American playwrights of the 20th century. O'Neill battled alcoholism and depression throughout his life and died in 1953 at the age of 65, leaving behind a legacy of powerful and emotionally charged play. He is widely regarded as one of the most important American playwrights of the 20th century. Introduction to Long Day's Journey into Night. Long Day's Journey into Night is a semi autobiographical play. The play is set in 1912 and follows the Tyrone family, James, Mary, Jamie, and Edmund, over the
Over the course of one day, the family members are struggling with various addiction and illness, including alcoholism and morphine addiction, as well as deep seated resentments and regrets. Throughout the play, the family members confront their past and present struggles, revealing the complex and troubled nature of their relationship. The play is powerful exploration of family dynamics, addiction, and the effects of the past on the present. Uh, Understanding addiction in a long day's journey into night. Here is a definition of addiction. In the Tyrant family, the type of addiction, this is a three type of addiction: alcoholism, morphine addiction, and addiction to the past. In alcoholism, James Tyrant, the patriarch of the family, struggles with alcoholism, and his drinking has caused financial ruin for the family. His sons, Jamie and Edmund, also struggle with alcoholism. Second is morphine addiction. Mary Tyron, James' wife, uh, is addicted to morphine, which she was prescribed for pain relief after giving birth to Edmund. The third one is addiction to the past. The family members are also addicted to their memories and the past, which haunts and influence their present relationship. Addiction is portrayed in the play. Addiction is a central theme of this play. Characters struggle with alcoholism, drug addiction, and morphine addiction. Addiction contributes to financial struggles, job instability, and unhealthy relationship between family members. Characters enable Characters enable each other's destructive habits, leading to a cycle of codependency. Addiction has a physical, emotional, and psychological consequences for the characters. The play emphasizes the toll addiction takes on individuals and their families, and the destructive power it can have on even the strongest relationship. The effects of addiction on the characters. Character James Tyrant's addiction to alcohol. James Tyrant's is portrayal in the play. James Tyrant in the play is portrayal as a complex issue influenced by both internal and external factors. His anxiety about poverty and unfulfilled ambition, as well as his defensive behavior and resistance to change, contribute to his addiction. His addiction has a significant impact on his family, including financial struggle and strained relationship. The place suggests that addiction is a complex response to psychological and social pressures rather than a simple matter of weakness or lack of willpower. Mary Tyrant's addiction to morphine. Mary Tyrant's addiction to morphine is portrayed in the play as a coping mechanism for both physical and emotional pain. The play suggests that Mary first received the morphine as a painkiller during childbirth, but her use of the drug continued long after her recovery. This suggests that her addiction may have developed as a way to cope with physical pain she experienced during childbirth and other health issue that she may have had. However, Mary's addiction is not only rooted in the physical pain. The play also suggests that Mary suffers from emotional pain. Emotional pain is because of she have not a good relationship with his husband, stemming from her difficult relationship with his husband and the loss of her youngest child. Throughout the play, Mary's past memories and present hallucination reveal her deep sense of guilt and regret about her past choices and the impact they have had on this family. Her addiction to morphine may be a way of numbing this emotional pain and escaping from the difficult realistic of her life. Edmund Tyrant's addiction on alcohol and drugs. Edmund Tyrant's addiction to alcohol and drugs in the play into night in the play is portrayed as a response to his feelings of dis- disillusionment and despair about the world. He uses substances to escape from his emotional pain and rebel against societal norms. However, his addiction is also influenced by his own choice and behaviors, such as being selfish and insensitive insensitive to his family. The play suggests that addiction is a complex issue shaped by both internal and external factors and not just a result of personal weakness or lack of willpower. Jamie Tyron and addiction to alcohol and prostitutes. Jamie Tyron's addiction to alcohol and prostitute in the play is portrayed as a response to his sense of insecurity and unfulfilled potential. He uses substances and prostitutes to avoid his problems and seek a temporary pleasure. However, his addiction is also influenced by his own choice and behaviors, such as being clinical and invasive of his younger brother. The play suggests that addiction is a complex issue influenced by physical and social pressure and not just a result of personal weakness of lack of willpower. The role of addiction in the play's theme. Addiction is a major theme in this play. It represents a form of escapism from emotional pain, failures, and problems. Addiction is a destructive forces that cause suffering not only for the individual but also for their family and loved ones. The play explores the struggles to accept and come to terms with the past. Addiction prevents the characters from moving forward and exacerbates their problems. Communication and relationship within the family break down due to addiction. Addiction is a symptom of the character's deep-seated emotional pain and their search for identity and meaning. Addiction serves as a metaphor for the character's struggle to find purpose and connection with their loved ones. The play suggests that true healing can only come through acceptance, understanding, and forgiveness. To conclude, addiction is a cruel theme in the play. It has a significant impact on the characters and their relationship, leading to the uh, disintegration of the family. The play highlights the destructive nature of addiction and the toll it takes on the individual and their loved ones. Through the characters' struggle with addiction, the play portrays the consequences of self deception, isolation, and the past influence on the present. Here is a work citation. If anyone have any question.
Bhavyata, how does the play addresses the issue of responsibility and blame when it comes to addiction?
In the play Long Days in Journey into Night, the play talks about addiction and how it's not just one person's fault. It's a problem caused by many things, genes, upbringing, and the person's environment. Sometimes the characters in the play, sometimes the characters blame each other. for their habit of addiction. Uh, uh, but the play shows that everyone has a role in solving the problems. The play also shows that people can make a choice and break free from addiction.
Bhavyata, what does the play suggest about the nature of addiction?
uh, the play uh, uh, this play is show us the addiction is a very harmful for us and for any person, and it also harms their life, and also effects on his own life and others relation and other relationship with his family, or also harmful for his or her family members. We can see in this play how addiction play a harmful role in this relationship between each other member. Addiction is like a cycle that keeps going and going, even through generation. It's like a disease that requires a lot of effort to overcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today is the third day of our presentation season 2. So on the third day of presentation season 2, I'm going to present my presentation on Hemingway's iceberg theory. So this topic is very vast to present in one presentation. So I choose this topic because my understanding is this, like you have to be more careful about how this theory works and how Hemingway used this theory in his writing. This is my personal information. Points to ponder. Introduction of author and about his theory. The iceberg theory. What is Hemingway's iceberg theory? Hemingway's old man and the iceberg. Conclusion. Let's start with the first topic. Introduction of the novelist. As we know that Ernest Miller Hemingway was an American novelist, short story writer, and journalist. His economical and understand style, which includes his iceberg theory, had a strong influence on 20th century fiction. While his adventurous lifestyle and public image brought him admiration from a later generation, like we also use this iceberg theory in classroom. Like in our department, we have this iceberg theory in this corner also, like cultural iceberg and other iceberg also there. So the iceberg theory or theory of omission is a writing technique coined by American writer Ernest Hemingway. As a young journalist, Hemingway had to focus his newspaper reports on immediate events with very little context or interpretation. So, iceberg theory is a very, as I also mentioned, that iceberg theory is very vast theory to understand. When he became a writer of short story, he retailed this minimalistic style, focusing on surface element with the explicitly discussion underlining themes. So Hemingway believed the deeper meaning of a story should not be vivid on the surface, but should shine through implicities. The iceberg theory. The iceberg theory, also known as the theory of omniscience, is a style of writing coined by, as I also mentioned, that Ernest Hemingway was coined this theory. The theory is so named because just as only a small part of an iceberg is visible above water, Hemingway's story presented only a small part of what was actually happened. So, alternatively speaking, Ernest Hemingway's iceberg theory is his strategy of fiction writing. In his most famous work, The Old Man and the Sea, he also used this theory. The large percentage of iceberg is underwater. So in next slide I will show you the picture of the iceberg theory. So here is the picture of the iceberg. So on the surface what the reader sees is there, like narrative and plot and dialogues, and under the water implies elements like thoughts, feelings, motive and symbolization. So this theory works in a way like Amanda Hetal explained in her article The Iceberg Theory of Writing. It is her article. In that she mentioned Ernest Hemingway coined this theory when he determined that by omitting part of a story detailed that the writer and reader both inherently knows the story's prose will the shortened and strengthened. So omitting part is also like a definition of omitting is something which is not showing on the surface. He believed that writing in this fashion formed a strong bond with the reader because the author has confidence that the reader is knowledgeable and intuitive enough to pick up on the pieces that were omitted. So, iceberg theory has many loopholes also. Like if readers are not more imaginative or not understand the purpose of writer, it will fail. It will may fail also. What is Hemingway's iceberg theory? So now I will tell you, Britton Perlham explained about the things about iceberg is there is always more hidden beneath the surface. Hemingway's iceberg theory centered on the idea that there is always more to story than what the reader or a viewer sees. In a death in the afternoon. So this is a non-fictional work of Hemingway, In the Death in the Afternoon. Hemingway wrote, I quote, if a writer of prose knows enough of what he is writing about, he may omit things that he knows, and the reader, if the writer is writing truly enough, will have a feeling of those things as strongly as though the writer had stated them, I unquote. Hemingway began his writing career as a journalist assigned to the crime beat for the Kansas City Star. His article had to be purely factual with no opinion or personal interpretation added. And Hemingway naturally brought the minimalistic style to his fictional writing. So this theory may come from his journalism and all the background of Hemingway's. Because of his journalism, he may coin this theory also. The iceberg theory, as a Hindle says, in the art of the short story, Hemingway was quoted, you could omit anything if you know that you omitted, and the omitted part would strengthen the story and make people feel something more than they understand. In other words, the reader will feel a deeper connection to the story because they had to use their knowledge to understand the items that were omitted. So, as we know that when we read something like a book, when we read that, we have to understand what writer want to say or what writer want to convey through this writing of his novel or of his through his characters. This in turn allows the reader to trust the author because the author knows their readers are smart enough to comprehend the work and not had every little concept spelled out in detail. So, may Hemingway wants to say that the reader are smart enough to understand their works. Like he wants to say that if you are enough understanding the work, you are enough understand the writer. As an author plays around with your stories and understand the balance to your prose. Too much omission will leave a story weak and difficult to understand or to see the whole picture. Too much detail will bore or irritate the reader. The author must find the balance of perfect of omniscient or level of omniscient to keep the iceberg from inverting. Hemingway's Old Man and the Iceberg. Old Man and the Sea is very famous novel of Hemingway. Robert Stephen explained in his article Hemingway's Old Man and the Iceberg when Ernest Hemingway told George Plimpton of the Paris Review about his iceberg theory of writing. He pointed to the Old Man and the Sea as a prime example of such writing. According to the theory, I always try to write on the principle of the iceberg. There is eighths of it underwater for every part that shows. So this is the lines saying by, or we can say explained by the Ernest Hemingway own self. The sea novel in the novel Old Man and the Sea, in respect to style fits the theory Hemingway pointed out is that he knew many fishing stories, never explicitly incorporated in the tale. Knowing them gave him authority for the tale he did write. So we know that other stories, fishing stories, are different from the Hemingway's own story. Like in the Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea is different from. There is not more focus on the fishing. There is more focus on one's personality or the strength of their thoughts and minds and their bravery. All these are included in the themes of the Old Man and the Sea. But Hemingway suggests more strongly the applicability of the iceberg image for understanding themes when he noted, you can be sure that there is much more than will be read at any first reading. This comment is especially meaningful when used as a way of viewing themes in his work that emerge like the crest of an iceberg in his novel. Conclusion: writers who utilize Hemingway's iceberg theory must embrace the ideas that they will always know more about the story, the world, the characters, and there will ever be room for on the page. Like I also said that this theory has some loophole. Like if one cannot imagine what writer writes, then it will be difficult to be on the same page of this iceberg theory. For leaving things off the page can often be more powerful than spelling them out. Hemingway developed the style as a result of being a journalist, a profession which required consciousness due to space restraint in a printed newspaper. Hemingway believed that the application of the iceberg theory created the perfect short story, and the more detailed the writer stripped away, the more powerful the story is. Here are my works cited. Thank you. Now you have any question, then you can ask me.
Drashti, how has the iceberg theory influenced other writers and writing styles?
Yes, iceberg theory is, as I mentioned in my slide, that iceberg theory used for the writer to convey that beneath that what he is conveys to his characters and plots and stories, it is more about what he says. Or we can say that writer wants to say that it is not enough of you understand, you have to develop your perspective in all 360-degree. We can say that you have to think in a different way when we read something, or when we always see something.
Drashti, my question is, how does the iceberg theory relate to Hemingway's writing style?
Yes. So in my slide number 3, you can see that Hemingway write this or coined this theory when he was professionally journalist. When he wants to write this short write up of the effect for newspaper. So he think that he might think that we can say we can I can coin this iceberg theory, because iceberg theory has this ice on the top, and into the water there is more ice beneath, as you can see in the picture of iceberg theory. So writing style Hemingway developed because iceberg it is related to his work, the Old Man and the Sea. So in this novel also he mentioned that the iceberg theory, as you can see in the novel, when you read the novel you can think more about it, so you have to develop your perspective in a different way. So that's it about today's presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone. On the third day of our presentation, I am dealing with the topic significance of the appearance of fog in long day's journey into night. This is my personal information. Table of contents. So first introduction, then about author, then theory of symbols north of Rye, then significance fog in literature, in Bleak House and Heart of Darkness, then significance of the fog in long day's journey into night, then conclusion and work citation. So, fog in literature is often mysterious, unpredictable, and a little scary. It comes out of nowhere without much of a warning and moves on, leaving the characters of a piece of writing in awe as they wonder where it is going next. There are, in fact, many things related to the characters which are wrapped up in the fog. Fog in the long day's journey into night is used as an important symbol. According to North of Fry, symbol is used to mean any unit to any literary structure that can be isolated for critical attention. This includes everything from the letters a writer uses to spell his words to poem itself as a symbolic reflecting the entire poetic universe. Eugene Gladstone O'Neill was born in October 16, 1888 at New York, US, and died in November 27, 1953 at Boston. He was a foremost American dramatist and winner of the Nobel Prize of Literature in 1936. His masterpiece, Long Day's Journey into Night, is at the apex of a long string of great plays, including Beyond the Horizon, Anna Christie, A Strange Interlude, Ah Wilderness, and The Iceman Comet. Then Northrop is most famous for his archetypal criticism, and he said so many things about the symbolism in literature. Here in my topic, there is the symbol of fog in Long Day's Journey into Night. So Northrop says one thing about symbol and modern criticism, that simultaneous development of several different schools of modern criticism, each making a distinctive choice of symbols in its analysis. Then theory of symbols, north of Fry, the use of the word symbol, which means any unit of any literary structure that can be isolated for critical attention. A word, a phrase, or an image used with some kind of special references are all symbols when they are distinguishable elements in critical analysis. Even the letters a writer spell his word with form part of his symbolism. In this sense, they would be isolated only in special cases such as alliteration or dialect spellings, but we are still aware that they symbolize sound. Criticism as a whole, in terms of this definition, would begin with and largely consist of the systematizing of literary symbolism. It followed that other words must be used to classify the different type of symbolism. Fry observed that the function of signs also a sign also depends on conventional association, but the difference between sign and archetypes is that the latter are complex variables, which mean that a given archetype may symbolize a variety of objects, idea, or emotions. Northrop said that Northrop give an example that green light, for example, may symbolize a hope or vegetable, nature or a goal sign in traffic or Irish patriotism as easily as jealousy. But the word green as a verbal sign always referred to a certain color. In this play, Long Day's Journey into Night, we find the fog, and the fog symbolize for many things like illusion, unclarity, confusion, and this is all this. And actually we will see the meaning of fog, then it is the only the form of weather. And Northrop also try to give the symbol of comedy, romance, tragedy, and irony and satire through weathers like spring as comedy, summer as romance, tragedy as autumn, and irony and satire as winter. So symbolic in literature we could find the fog as a symbol, and this symbolic we could find so many meanings like illusion versus reality, fog as uncertainty, fog as mystery, fog as confusion, fog as dreams, and fog as depression. In this work, Long Day's Journey into Night, fog is stand as uncertainty, confusion, and depression, and so many other things. If we see in the literature, then fog in Charles Dickens' Bleak House. Right from the start of the novel, we are introduced to a world where fog impaired vision. If we come to this introduction already understanding that injustice involves a failure to see and respond, we realize immediately the power of Dickens' use of fog to image the utterly pervasive and damaging forces of injustice. Dickens depicts a city where vision is unavoidably impaired, for fog by definition obscure vision, and this fog is anywhere. Moreover, this fog has an aggressive character. It is both ubiquitous and traveling, groping and seeping into every nook and cranny of London. It also has a distinctive character. It trains the lives of the London dwellers, sneaking into their eyes and down their throats. We could also find the fog in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Here, imagery of fog and mist is pervasive in Conrad's stories and in his thinking about the nature of art. Described in his preface to the Niggers of Narcissus, Heart of Darkness underlining the ways in which not only Marlowe and the tale's narrator, but the writer of the tale himself are alike protagonist in its particular descent into an attempt conquest of darkness. Conrad was aware of obscurities in this novel, brave attempt to grapple with the fogginess of heart of darkness to explain what I myself try to shape blindfold. He began the story not with an abstract notion but with definition images, relying on their truth to convey the novel's idea. Five interpretation of this image has produced wide disagreement about the novel's idea, however, and varying view of its achievement. Marlowe's steamer is caught in the fog, meaning that he has no idea where he is going and no idea whether peril or open water lies ahead. We could find in this fog as darkness. Then significance of the appearance of fog in Long Day's Journey into Night. O'Neill's employs a literal image of fog in two plays. First is Fog, published in 1940, and his other is A Long Day's Journey into Night, published in 1956. 3 years after his death. The image of a fog never stand alone as a literal. O'Neill always places metaphoric meaning behind it. On the literal level, the image of fog is what readers expect, a weather condition that yield fuzzy vision and poor awareness of surroundings. On the metaphorical level, fog represents his character's clouded state of mind and their search for a sense of meaning and truth in an otherwise chaotic life. Fog evolves from a symbol for inner conflict and animosity toward his family to a symbol for tolerance and acknowledgement of the irreversible state of all of their flaws. If we see at the opening of the play, Mary rises to look out the window and comment on the absence of the fog. This absent fog return and close in throughout the play as a sign both of Mary's clouded consciousness and of her desire to disappear from this sight of the others. The image of fog also become a metaphor for the ways in which Mary and Edmund choose to endure and escape their traumas. The first mention of fog comes from Mary in Act 1, who noticed the day in sunny and bright as she remarked, and she said, "Thanks heaven, the fog is gone." The dialogue between the family members reflect this sunny day as humor and joking fulfill the scene. At the starting, there is the sunny day, there is no fog, and that's why we could find that the play is starting with happiness and the every character are interjection with humor and joking. However, even in tone of playful banter, O'Neill hints at their troubles from the very beginning. Mary and James Tyrone, or a mother and father, playfully argue about Tyrone's snoring habit, and suddenly there is something wrong here starting that Mary said, "I do feel out of sorts this morning. I wasn't able to get much sleep with that awful foghorn going all night long." Immediately Mary comments attaches a feeling of anxiety to the fog, which signifies its imminence if not its dangerous connotation. As the play progresses, the fog returns and grows thicker, and both Mary and Edmund become increasingly aware of their traumas. We find that the impact of fog is mostly seen in two characters, Edmund and Mary. Tyrone and James Tyrone Jr., O'Neill's father and older brother, respectively, are not as perspective of the fog and its depth. Mary and Edmund are more critically aware of its presence and power. Literal fog appear for the first time as a soft, looming presence in Act 2. Outside, the day is still fine but increasingly sultry, with a faint haziness in the air which softens the glare of the sun. As the fog began to creep into the setting, traumas lurk closer to Mary and Edmund. In Act 3, it begins with dusk is gathering in the living room, and an early dusk due to the fog which has rolled in from the sound and is like a white curtain drawn down outside the window. The fog reduces visibility but still allows light to shine through. However, by Act 4, the fog has completely engulfed the Tyrant family in the darkness of the night. It is around midnight. In the living room, only the reading lamp on the table is lighted. Outside the window, the wall of appears denser than ever. So we find that from the starting to the end, the fog became thicker and thicker. O'Neill creates a shifting image from light to dark through this way and evokes a tone that shifts from cheerful to somber, even suffocating. The literal fog does not remain as a simple prop for the setting. For O'Neill, the image of fog also represents the psychological journey of him and his family members over the course of one day, exemplifying a shift from simplicity to complexity in dealing with their traumas. As the day grows into night and the fog begins to brood over everything, Mary and Edmund become increasingly aware of their impending confrontations with the psychological suffering they endure. Likewise, Mary and Edmund are also utterly lost in the depth and complexity of their psychological affairs. Adrift in her oppressive addiction, Mary cannot reverse her state of tragedy, while Edmund uses fog as a false means of escape, escape climbing to a hopeless hope, and comes to realize he must accept his family in their calamitous state. So it can be concluded that fog in this play is much faceted, and its a variable effect on different characters and at different times in the dramatic action are what distinguishes it from a potent dramaturgical device. Fog clearly indicates weather progression in this play, proceeding from fine morning to sunshine beams. This progression culminates in the dense fog dark early and the dense fog black night as the play moves forward toward its end. This is our work citation. Thank you. If you have a question, you can ask.
Gayatri, my question is how does the fog contribute to the atmosphere and mood of the play? A long day's journey into night.
Yes. Fog is simply represent as atmosphere or weather. In this play, we can connect this atmosphere changes with the character's mood changes. From the first, we find that there is a sunny and lightning day starting with, and every characters are in a good mood. They are doing humor and joking. But as the play progressed, atmosphere gone foggy and everything gone wrong with every character were troubling in confusion and illusion uncertainty. So in fog contributed to atmosphere and mood of the play long journey into night.
Gayatri, my question is that how does the folk serve as a metaphor for the characters' inability to see clearly and understand their own lives and relationships?
Fog is stand for metaphor as confusion, as uncertainty, as illusion, and we could find that every in this play every character's relationship are in trouble, and this is connected with the folk that uh, uh, in the play we could when we find the when O'Neill present the folk, there is the trouble between relationship of the characters. uh, so it is stand as a metaphor of the trouble of their lives and relationship of their characters.
Hello everyone, my name is Katariya Ghanshyam, and today's my presentation's topic is Robert Jordan as a typical Hemingway hero. This is my introduction. The table of content. In this presentation, I will discuss about uh, introduction of author, then the introduction of the novel For Whom the Bell Tolls, the character of Robert Jordan, Robert as a Hemingway hero, and conclusion. Introduction to author. Ernest Hemingway was an influential American writer who lived in 1899 to 1961. He was part of the group of writers called Generation, who were disillusioned with the values of their parents' generation after World War One. Hemingway's writing style was characterized by its simplicity and directness, and he is considered one of the most important writers of the 20th century. In 1954, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for his contribution to literature. Hemingway wrote many famous books, including The Sun Also Rises, Farewell to Arms, and The Old Man and the Sea. The novel For Whom the Bell Tolls. For Whom the Bell Tolls was published in 1940. The story of the novel For Whom the Bell Tolls is set during the Spanish Civil War and follows American volunteer named Robert Jordan, who is tasked with blowing up a bridge behind enemy line. The novel explores the themes such as sacrifice, love, and brutality of war. For Whom the Bell Toll has been considered as one of the Hemingway's greatest work and classic of 20th century literature. Character of Robert Jordan. Robert Jordan is a protagonist of Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, and he is an American dynamiter who volunteers to fight alongside Spanish guerrilla fighters during the Spanish War in late 1930s. Jordan is a complex and introspective character whose internal struggles with morality, courage, and love mirrors the larger themes of the novel. As a Hemingway hero, Jordan embodies the ideals of bravery, dignity, and stoicism in the face of a danger and death. For if Robert Jordan, this is the quote from Cooperman that he says about Robert Jordan. For if Robert Jordan does not oppose the mind of the greater humanity, it is merely because he conceives himself with a tragic success that greater humanity can be defined as Robert Jordan. The Hemingway hero. The Stoicism is an important trait of Hemingway hero. The Hemingway hero is often involved in a personal morality. He is man of conscience and is fully aware of his responsibility in his involvement with whatsoever he takes up. He knows the consequences and faces them stoically. He fights against all odds with remarkable determination, even though he is defeated in the end. So we can say that the Hemingway heroes often fight against the odds and are mostly brave. In this line, we can see this. It is from For Whom the Bell Tolls. The world is a fine place and worth fighting for, and I hate very much to leave it. This is quote from the character of Robert Jordan. Hemingway wrote about unease and instability, which he faced as personal psychology. His unease is that of an individual man fearful for his own masculinity. So we can say that the masculinity and its presentation is also found in Hemingway's heroes. Oppressed by the need particularly to prove himself, he dwells upon horrible things just to convince himself that he can take. His hero struggles in endless isolation and against heavy odds. The this we can also find in Robert Jordan, that we can see in this quote that dying was nothing and he had no picture of it nor fear of it in his mind, but living was a field of a grain blowing in the wind on the side of a hills. Here we can see this that the Hemingway heroes are always determined, and they believe in that they can take and fight against the heavy odds. Wounded man. This is also the characteristic, and it's mostly find in Hemingway heroes. That Hemingway heroes shows as a suffering from some wounds or scar. It is not just physical but psychologically as well. It is because Hemingway was obsessed with the problem of learning to live with his scars. uh, we can see of these scars and wounds in example with other Hemingway's works, like Jack Barnes in The Sun Also Rises is also suffers from severe war wounds that has made him important. And in Farewell to Arms, the character of Henry is wounded in his legs during the war. Is a physical wound has emotional parallel also. In To Have and Have Not, the hero Harry Morgan is also physically wounded, and in is the sense that he has only one arm. Because economically wounded due to separation and society that allows no allowance. This is also the psychological wound of his. In For Whom the Bell Tolls, we can see that the protagonist is also the wounded man. He suffers from emotional scars left by his father's death, who committed suicide and thereby failed to endure life with courage. Along with this emotional wound that he carries, he later suffers physical wounds when he attempts to solve this. He joined the liberal in Spanish Civil War. He there is severely wounded in his legs, and because of it lies down to cover the escape of other warriors. So those are the characteristic and the Hemingway heroes. And in this slide, I have some example of the similar quality of that type of characteristic that in some movies we can find such a heroes following stoicism, who are wounded heroes. They follow their code of life, feel responsible for their action toward the world. The example of Spider-Man, the character of Peter Parker, have a psychological wound, as he consider himself as the responsible for the death of his uncle Ben, and he takes responsibility for his action as a Spider-Man, and he always remembers his uncle's saying that with great powers comes great responsibility. The other is James Bond character in the James Bond franchises. The character is he always have wants by the psychological wants of betrayal and other things, and he also suffers from wounds during fights, but still he fight for his nation. And then this character of Batman is also, we can say that he also is that type of hero who, after his parents death, Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, and takes responsibility and feels responsibility toward his city, Gotham, and he tries to save peoples. The conclusion. So we can say that the Hemingway heroes are code heroes, that they others to their codes and live by it, and also live by it in the world of violence, misery, and disorder. And they can tackle problems of the world that he has been introduced to and live in with their success. If they tackle it, they live in success, and if not, they die trying. And the code hero is therefore exemplified in a certain principle like honor, courage, and endurance, and that we can find in Robert Jordan also. This is my work cited. Thank you. Now you can ask me questions.
Ghanshyam, my question is that how does Hemingway's typical hero differs from other literary heroes?
The Hemingway heroes often they believe in this that they have this code of they believe in honor and sacrifice, and they are willing to fight odds, and they can do anything for their belief of honor and sacrifice. Like we can see this in Robert Jordan also, that he takes up the job of blow up the bridge of enemy lines, and for that he also sacrifice himself also. So how that's how it differs.
Ghanshyam, can we say that Robert Jordan's experience in the Spanish Civil War shaped his identity as a typical Hemingway hero?
Uh, Not mostly, because he takes up the job of Spanish Civil War. Before that, he also have suffered the psychological wound of his father's death, and he is a volunteer. He takes up task of fighting in a war. So he's basically he is experienced person, and then later in Spanish War, after he joined the Spanish Civil War, he is progress. He progress in his characteristic, but he also have some of it before the Spanish War also.
Hello, dear friends. I am Gopi Dervaliya. Today, I am going to deal with this topic: major leaders of Transcendentalist movement. This is my personal information. Table of contents. First topic is introduction. Second is what is transcendentalism. Third is major transcendentalist values. Fourth is major leaders of transcendentalist movement. Fifth is conclusion, and then citation. Introduction. The treatment of transcendentalism by 20th century teachers of literature and American history has followed a long tradition of
focusing primarily on the European and American cultural influences on its major figures such as Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Margaret Fuller. Their work is seen as fitting into various Western currents such as German Romanticism, Utilitarian theology, Neoplatonism, and American utopian thought. They were critics of their contemporary society for its unthinking conformity and urged that each person find in Emerson's word an original relation to the universe. What is Transcendentalism? Transcendentalism is a philosophical movement centered around a spirituality that was popular in the mid 19th century. Transcendentalism believes that humans are inherently good but can be corrupted by society and institutions. Inside and experience, and more important than logic, spirituality should come from the self, not organized religion, and nature is beautiful and should be respected. So it's all about spirituality, and it is a philosophy that began in the mid 19th century, and who's founding this movement, who's founding members of founding members are Thoreau and Emerson. According to them, spirituality cannot be spirituality cannot be achieved through reason and rationalism, but it is achieved through self-reflection. And transcendentalists believe that argue that going for walk in a beautiful place, and going for walk in a beautiful place, and uh, much more it's much more better than reading a religious book. And in other words, transcendentalists believe that it's not spirituality, it's not something you can explain, it's something you feel. Major transcendentalist values. Here are three major transcendentalist values. First is individualism. So perhaps the most important transcendentalist value is was that in importance of individualism, and they saw the individual as pure, and they also believed that society and its institutions corrupted their purity. People were best when they were independent, and they also believed that people were best when they were independent and could think for themselves. Second is idealism. The focus on idealism comes from Romanticism, a slightly earlier movement, and they believed in importance of imagination, institution, and creativity. They want to bring back a more ideal and enjoyable way of living. Third is divinity of nature. Transcendentalists did not believe in organized religion, but they were very spiritual. They saw nature as a scared and divine. They also believed that humans to have a close relationship with nature, and they saw that humans nature is perfect as it was. Humans should not try to change or improve nature. Major leaders of Transcendentalist movement: Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Sarah Margaret Fuller. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he is an American essayist, poet, and popular philosopher. He began his career as a Unitarian minister in Boston, but achieved a worldwide fame as a lecturer and the author of such essays as Self-Reliance, History, The Oversoul, and Fate. Drawing on English and German Romanticism, Neoplatonism, Kantianism, and Hinduism, Emerson developed metaphysics of process and epistemology of moods, and an existentialist ethics of self-improvement. He brought together many of the original transcendentalists and his writings from the foundation of many of the movement's beliefs. He influenced generations of Americans from his friend Henry David Thoreau to John Dewey and in Europe of Friedrich Nietzsche. Who takes up such Emersonian themes as power, fate, the use of poetry and history, and the critique of Christianity. The day before the published his essay Nature, he invited a group of his friends to join the Transcendental Club, a meeting of like-minded individuals to discuss their beliefs. He continued to host club meetings, write essays, and give speeches to promote Transcendentalism. Some of his most important transcendentalist essays include The Oversoul, Self-Reliance, The American Scholar, and Divinity School Address. Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. This essay wrote in 1841 and throughout the essay they discuss the importance of individuality and how people must avoid the temptation or to conform to society at the expense of their true selves. It also contains the excellent line of foolish consistency in the hobgoblin of little minds adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. Self-reliance and an emphasis on the individual over community is a core belief of transcendentalism, and this essay was key in developing that views. Henry David Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau was an American essayist, philosopher, and poet. Thoreau was born in Concord, Massachusetts, and died at the age of 44. Like that of his near contemporaries, Soren Kierkegaard, Thoreau's intellectual career unfolded in a close and polemical relation to the town in which he spent almost his entire life. After graduating from Harvard in 1837, he struck up a friendship with a fellow Concord resident Ralph Waldo Emerson, whose essay Nature he had first encountered earlier that year. Thoreau had intimate bonds with his family and friends and remained unmarried, although he was deeply in love at least twice. Thoreau was a friend of Emerson's, who is best known for his book Walden. Walden is focused on the benefits of individualism, simple living, and close contact with and observation of nature. Thoreau also frequently opposed the government and its actions, most notably in his essay Civil Disobedience. His notable quote, I want to the woods because I wish to live deliberately to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. The Summer Rain by Henry David Thoreau. This is a very famous poem by Henry David Thoreau. The poem describes the narrator's delight at being in a meadow during a rainstorm. The poem frequently mentions the enjoyment that observing nature can bring, and there are many descriptions of the meadow, such as a clover tuft is pillow for my head, and violets quite overtop my shoes. But Thoreau also makes a point to show that he believes nature is more enjoyable and a better place to learn from them than intellectual pursuits like reading and studying. Margaret Fuller. Margaret Fuller was the daughter of a Massachusetts congressman who provided tutors for her in Latin, Greek, chemistry, philosophy, and later German. Exercising that Barbara Packer calls her peculiar powers of intuition and cares. Fuller become friends with many of the Transcendentalists, including Emerson. In the winters of 1839 to 44, Fuller organized a series of popular and influential conversations for women in Elizabeth Peabody's bookstore in Boston. She journeyed to the Midwest in the summer of 1843 and published her observation as Summer on the Lakes the following year. Woman in the 19th century, a revision of her great lawsuit manifesto in the Dial is Fuller's major philosophical work. A well-known journalist and ardent supporter of women's rights, she helped confound the Dial, the key Transcendentalist journal with Emerson, which helped cement her place in the movement and spread the ideas of Transcendentalism to a wider audience. An essay she wrote for the journal was later published as the book Woman in the 19th Century, one of the earliest feminist work in the United States. She believed in the importance of individual, but often felt that other transcendentalists, namely Emerson, focused too much on individualism at the expense of social reform. Conclusion: by the end of the 1840s, many key transcendentalists had begun to move on to other pursuits, and the movement declined. This decline was further hastened by the ultimately death of Margaret Fuller, one of the leading transcendentalists and confounder of the Dial. Transcendentalism represents an important movement in a new American consolidation of global religious awareness, seeing such strong connections that were so pervasive in one of America's most original intellectual movements. And with Walden long installed as a part of the Western canon. These are work citation. Thank you.
Gopi, according to you, how did the leaders of the Transcendentalist movement view society and culture?
Yes, the leaders of the Transcendentalist movement believed that society and culture had become too materialistic and focused on external achievements, and they emphasize that individual very most importance of individual and self-reliance and intuitions.
Gopi, my question is, as it emerged in the 19th century, how did the Transcendentalism movement affected the culture?
Yes, in the 19th century, Transcendentalism affect culture influencing literature, philosophy, religion, politics, and also contribute to the uh, contribute to the American American society and also social and political movements.
A very good evening to all of you. On the third day of presentation, semester 2, I am going to deal with paper number 108, the American literature. In that paper, my today's topic is Eugene O'Neill's use of naturalistic dialogue in his play Long Day's Journey into Night. This is my personal information. In table of contents, I am going to deal with brief overview of Eugene O'Neill's life, about the play, definition of naturalistic dialogue and its key features, examples of naturalistic dialogue from the play, significance of the dialogues and conclusion. An overview of Eugene O'Neill's life. Eugene O'Neill, in full name Eugene Gladstone O'Neill, was born in the year 1888. For most American dramatist and winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1936. Being a prominent literary figure, he also received critics through his plays. His works analyzed from various points of view, not only in America, but in the parts of the world. His most of the plays involve tragedy and pessimism. As we know that the long day's journey into night is also about the tragedy in which the families relationships with each other are not going well. He became prominent literary figure in America, and he also introduced psychological and social realism to the American age. Further, the first scholarly biography of Eugene O'Neill appeared in the 1960s, and it was written by Doris Alexander. The book was entitled as The Tempering of Eugene O'Neill. In another book of Clifford Leach's Eugene O'Neill, this book is a brief and general introduction about covering the life and writings of him. In that book, Clifford Leach make one comment by saying that Eugene O'Neill's plays can be better understood if one is equipped with the knowledge of his life and circumstances. His masterpiece, Long Day's Journey into Night, is at the apex of a long string of great plays. O'Neill's plays were written from an intensely personal point of view, deriving directly from the scaring effects of his family's tragic relationships. In Long Day's Journey into Night, we can find autobiographical elements in his play, and also about the family's tragic relationships with each other, about the parents and their sons. About the play. Long Day's Journey into Night, a play in 4 acts by Eugene O'Neill, written in 1941, produced and published posthumously in the year 1956. The play, which is considered an American masterpiece, was awarded a Pulitzer Prize in 1957. Long Day's Journey into Night is exactly that, long. Why is it long? Because the play is endless and very painful also. We can feel the pain through the character of the play. The day of the play, 8:30 a.m. to midnight. A day in the life of tyrants, a trip from day to night, both forward and backward, suggest place realism. As we know that the play depicts a trip, or we can say journey, about the through the night, day to night, and we can also see the past and present in this play through the character of Mary, tyrant. In one article by Beth Rinstra, Darren Wood emphasized that Darren Wood, who was the director of folk theatre, and he also took guidance under Eugene O'Neill's theatre. He make one comment in this article by saying that this play depicts the claustrophobic nature of the home, as well as the characters' inability to escape the problems of the past, present, and one another. In the play, there are mainly 4 characters, which is Mary and Edmund, husband, wife, and their sons, Jamie and Edmund. But through their situation of escaping about the problems of the past, the present, and also with the one another.
It is a story of one family, and it shows the relationship of the parents and their sons with each other. This play, widely considered to be his magnum opus and one of the finest American plays of the 20th century. Along with that, this play is also about the characters of the play is also struggling to grapple with the responsibility and consequences in failing to the relationships with one another. Definition of naturalistic dialogue and its key features. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary of English Language, naturalism means an action, inclination, or thought based only on natural desires or instincts. So these are some key features or elements of the naturalism, in which naturalistic dialogues often includes incomplete sentences, pauses, and interpretations. The goal of naturalistic dialogue is to create a sense of authenticity and immediacy. Naturalistic dialogues are purposeful and driven by the characters' motivations and desires. In the play Long Day's Journey into Night, as we have seen in the movie also, that many times the dialogues are often include incomplete sentences, pauses, and interpretations while they are conversing with each other. And naturalistic dialogues are always helpful and purposeful because they are driven by the characters' motivations and desires. And in this play, we can see the motivations and desires through the character of Mary Tyron. For examples of naturalistic dialogues from this play, I have taken two dialogues in which Mary and Edmund are conversing with each other, and in another dialogue, Mary and James were conversing with each other. So let's see that. In dialogue one, Mary, I wish I could go back to the days when I was young and carefree, when I had my whole life ahead of me. Edmund, you still have your whole life ahead of you, mother. You are not that old. Mary says, oh, but I am, Edmund. I am old and tired and sick. I will never be young and carefree again. Mary, okay, so that's the dialogue. And now see the what is the significance of this dialogue in the context of naturalism. In both the dialogues, one can see naturalism used by Eugene O'Neill in this play. In first dialogue, Mary Tyron was conversing with her son Edmund about her past and youthful and younger days. She wants to go back towards the days when she was very much young and youthful, and that is how she expressed her thought and personal desire, that she wants to go back towards the towards her past days. And when Edmund replied that still you have your whole life ahead of you, mother, you are not that old. At that time, Mary replied that I am very old and tired and sick, and I will never be young and carefree again. So this dialogue we can also connect with the addiction of morphine through the character of Mary. In another dialogue, Mary says, I naturally feel tired and nervous this morning after such a bad night. I really ought to go upstairs and lie down until lunchtime and take a nap. James, you do as you think best, Mary. Mary says, you know what I mean. You do not want me to. You never do. James, I didn't say that. Mary, you don't have to. I know you don't like me to. You always want me to stay downstairs with you. In the significance of second dialogue, when she was doing conversation with her husband James, she wants to go upstairs and wants to take some rest until the lunch, but she felt that James don't like that thing, and that is how in both the dialogues from the play we can see naturalism through the dialogues between the two characters. So that is how we can see the examples of naturalistic dialogues from this play through both this conversation. In conclusion, I would like to say that the play Long Day's Journey into Night has the quality of naturalism evidenced by the unfolding nightmares of realities of Titan family life, right from the beginning to the end of the play. Along with that, in the ending part of the play, the way Mary went into her past that shows her natural desire and thought. As we have seen in the movie also, that in the ending of the play, while Mary wore her wedding gown, and she completely sleeps into her past and talked about his past days. So that is how she shows her natural desire and thought. And also the end is very tragic. In that way we can consider. These are my work citations. Okay, so now you can ask me questions.
Hetal, my question is that how does O'Neill use of naturalistic dialogue in his plays reflect the natural rhythms of everyday speech?
Okay, so Eugene O'Neill's used naturalistic dialogues in his play because sometimes we want naturalistic dialogues because we want to become realistic. Through naturalistic dialogue, we can also imply it in our daily life and daily routine, and also in this play through the naturalistic theme and naturalistic way of dialogue, the playwriter also wants to convey the same thing, the realistic.
Hetal, my question is how do the naturalistic dialogues affect the overall theme of the play Long Day's Journey into Night?
The naturalistic dialogues affect the overall theme of the play. As we have seen that there are many themes in the in the play, like Mary's addiction of morphine, the alcoholism addiction, and also the addiction of past. And through naturalistic dialogue, the playwriter Eugene O'Neill wants to convey us the reality and the realistic elements of the characters. So that is how the naturalistic dialogues affects the one of the major theme, which is addiction of the past in the play. Okay, so that is all for today's presentation. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. Today is the third day of our presentation season, and I am going to present my presentation. And my topic is Transcendentalism and Indian philosophy and religion. This is my personal information, and those are some points which I am going to deal in my presentation. I'm going to discuss 19th century American literature, then what is Transcendentalism, two types of transcendentalism in America. Henry David Thoreau on transcendentalism, Emerson, and Indian philosophy, and then conclusion. So, I'm going to I'm going to present my. I'm going with first introduction. Recent criticism has increasingly focused on the native qualities of 19th century American literature. Charles Fedelson was among the first to emphasize its symbolic character, arguing that American writers like Emerson, Whitman, Hawthorne, and Melville all seek to understand the world in symbolic terms in their efforts to unveil the significance behind the phenomenal world. So these narrative style writing, then fiction, and that all kind of literature took a grounding throughout the 19th century literature. In this period, middle class people and working class people rising in reading, and 19th century American literature welcome many genres novels, short stories, poem, personal journals, and many things, and that all literature point out politics, religion, and philosophy of that time. So first of all, we have to understand what is transcendentalism. Transcendentalism was a movement in the early to mid 19th century that embraced new ideas in literature, religion, and culture. It was a protest to intellectualism and the doctrine to the Unitarian Church. It was a belief that people can reach a spiritual state by utilizing their intuition, and not by learned doctrines and religious teachings. The period from roughly 1830 through the 1860 saw the growth of one of the most exotic intellectual movements ever to take root in American soil, and that is transcendentalism. This transcendentalism movement was literary and philosophical movement that emerged in 19th century in United States, and this movement was very significant in American literature. This movement, led by Ralph Waldo Emerson, the New England Transcendentalist, mounted an attack on social, intellectual, religious, and political beliefs. Henry David Thoreau was so transcendentalist that he resisted official membership in this, as in any other group. There can be no doubt, however, that for our purposes, he must be included. Then here is two types of transcendentalism in America. There are two types of transcendentalism in America: Franco-American type, and second is German-American type. So first is Franco-American type in there is a tradition that New England transcendentalism was made in Germany. This tradition has been allowed to grow by a double default, both through the superness of American scholars and through the positive propaganda of German culture. It has remained for a Franco-American to dispose of the matter by showing that the American transcendental movement, with its idealism and individualism, was but part of the greater movement of European Romanticism. And second is Gerald had done great service in disposing of the fable of the preponderant influence of German philosophy upon New England Transcendentalism. Henry David Thoreau on Transcendentalism. Thoreau was one of the leading figures in the Transcendentalist movement, which held on to Weldon found that the human connection with nature is necessary for intellectual and moral stability. His writings, Thoreau was able to impart his beliefs on how people should live in order to transcend the materialistic world. By living simple and without many material goods, a person can be in the world but not of the world. By using the influence of Emerson, Thoreau became one of the leading influences of the Transcendentalist movement. Beside Emerson and Thoreau, four other distinguished Americans of the period that are Alcott the teacher, Victor the Quaker, Melville the rover, and Whitman the mystic showed an interest in Indian philosophic thought and in turn were influenced by it. Then Emerson and Indian philosophy. Two quite different American philosophers looked upon Emerson's concern with Indian philosophy as a kind of aberration, who are William Torrey Harris and Charles Sanders Peirce. Emerson is the leading exponent of Indian thought among the Transcendentalists, many of whom saw it as not only curious to the rising American materialism. Thoreau, like other Transcendentalists, had a breadth and Catholicity of mind, which brought him to the study of religions of India. From the beginning, he was disillusioned with organized Christianity, as he never went to church, and like Emerson, showed great interest in Hinduism and its philosophy. In comparison to Hebrewism, Thoreau found Hinduism superior in many ways. The following passage demonstrates Thoreau's disagreement with Hebrewism and his love for Hinduism. The lofty concept of man embodied in Hinduism appealed to Thoreau. Praising such a concept, he writes, in the Hindu scripture, the idea of man is quite illimitable and sublime. There is nowhere a lofty conception of his destiny. He is at length lost in Brahma himself, the divine male. In his transcendental thoughts, the world is a large conglomerate into one big divine family. He finds beside his Weldon pound the servant of the Brahmin, priest of Brahma and Vishnu and Indra, who still sits in his temple on the Ganga reading the Vedas. Their beckets grades together in the same well. The pure, well-done water is mingled with the sacred water of the Ganga. Thoreau, the Concord sage, said the Vedanta teaches how by forsaking religious rites the watery may obtain purification of mind. And one sentence of the Ganga is worth the state of Massachusetts many times over. So transcendentalism and in Indian philosophy, there are many they share many similarities. The they both teachers they both follow humanism and nature and institution. Both philosophy both philosophy teaches us to search and explore ourselves and search for and understand our consciousness and search the truth in the world. Many transcendentalists believe that the truth we could find through spiritual practice. And in Indian philosophy, the Indian philosophy believes that we find the truth through indirect, like as a meditation. Conclusion: Thoreau's reading of literature on Indian and the Vedas was extensive. He took them seriously. I feel proud to quote Thoreau's statement is evidence of a true transcendentalist. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. To reveal Thoreau's belief that every man must transcend the correct sociological ideas. These are my work cited. Thank you. Anyone have question? You can ask me.
Hina, my question is that what is similarity between transcendentalism and Indian philosophy?
Transcendentalism and Indian philosophy, they share many similarities. They both emerge humanism, then nature and institution. They both philosophy. Believes that everything in the universe is connected to each other and dependent to each other, and both philosophy teaches us to explore ourselves and understand our consciousness and find truth in the world. And we know that I mentioned in my I said this again that many transcendentalists believe that if we want to find truth, we can find that by spiritual practice. And in other side, in Indian philosophy, they said that we could find truth by indirect, like as a meditation.
So, Hina, my question is, as you mentioned in your slides about Emerson is the leading exponent of Indian thought. So, can you throw some more light upon that?
Emerson is a leading figure in transcendentalism, and he also have interest in Indian philosophy and Indian religions, because he felt that Indian philosophy is very interesting, and he could find himself, and he could find the truth through that Indian philosophy.
So that was the last one. Let us have a quick feedback. So Aarti, Anjali, they both presented well as yesterday. Content was good. Referred also to in a way, qualitative sources also. One thing that I suggested in the morning also, that when you refer to the source, now only putting the thing that this is what is said here, and I put this. Instead, you have to connect with the trajectory of your thought, like what you are trying to prove, how it is supporting you. So when you are telling something and then you take help of that article and the writer, so you say that you make some point and then you say so and so person in this article also says this, or he also argued in this way, so it is in support. Or you want to counter argue with something, you want to talk about something wherein you are not agreeing with some observation. So you say, though the person has observed this in this article, one can read this also. And then you give your example, your quote from the text, that you also you can. So that is called, you have to merge inside, not keeping it separately. Like in the last one also, Hina has put this, though you put in parenthesis, Sharma is there. So that is there, but you are not using it, that so and so Sharma in so and so article. Why is he saying that? Why are you using that? These questions need to be answered. Why are they saying and why are you using that particular quote? That also you have to say something and then you have to merge together. Avani also did well. It was a good presentation, and those allusions are very well found out. Even the Shakespearean references. So there is textual evidence also. That is very important. That within the text also there are dialogues where people are talking about Shakespeare, the play, or some references, comically, ironically, they refer to the characters from Shakespeare, and then you are trying to read. So that is a good idea. When we try to read anything, we have to also give textual evidence that there is something like that in the text also. So it is not something that you are just building a kind of an ivory tower in air, just on the cloud, but it is rooted in the foundations of the text. So that was good to see that. You refer to biblical things and then you refer to nun and prayer. This rather you can say Christian allusions to Christian religion rather than Bible. If there are directly biblical characters or direct incidents coming from Bible, then you can say biblical allusions, like Absalom and Achitophel had character like David, Absalom, Achitophel, directly coming from Bible. But if it is about prayers and other things, none or that, then it is about Christianity. So allusions to Christian religion, that can be perhaps a better word for that. Then in your citation, you used everywhere, accessed on this date. That you used everywhere, accessed on so and so date. But many of the sources that you have used, they are books. You cite everything is not online. So things which are not online, for that you are not supposed to use accessed on so and so date. That is to be used only for online sources, not print one. And why that is this rule? Anybody can tell why that is required? Like for online, you say accessed on this date, and why for the book we say no need to do that.
Publication. Like it can be published on a different date, and we are using that in different dates.
On the different date means
Publication can be concerned.
Publication can be
Concern like if you are using this like this book is published in 2021 and you are using this in 2022, so you cannot use this accessed in.
No, why? But why that?
The books can be read as a physical copy also, that hard copy we read, so it's not accessed, we read also. So
no, but the online also we read. Online things also we are going to do. You may take a print also and also read online.
Whole book cannot be read within a single day.
No, so that's why you want to require to write access on this date, because you can't read. For website or e-resources, we put accessed on so and so date. For books, that is not required. No need to put. Like in books, a print, like there is a print and then there is digital resource. two resources, print and digital. For print, it is not written, accessed on this day. For digital, it is written, accessed on this day. So why this? That question may come, no? For everything, like there is always a why. Why in this way? Why in not in the another way? Why that? Because in printing, things will not be changed now. It will remain as it is. Whereas online things can be edited anytime. So if you have cited yesterday, today I check and I say it is not there. So you can say, but yesterday I cited it was there. So how can I know yesterday? So that's why you put a date. Accessed on this day, material was there, information was there. Now today it may not be there. So there are archived copies of digitals. If you ask, like, no, I want to investigate this, I want to know this, કદાચ એ જીવન મરણનો પ્રશ્ન હોય તો લોકો કે નહીં એ તારીખ તમે કહો છો તારીખનું મારે જોઈએ તો એ ડેટા પણ મળી શકે સર્વરમાં. એના માટે વધુ ટેકનિકલ એક્સપર્ટની જરૂર પડે, but we can find even that data. So on that day, then people can verify. Yes, on this day it was like this. So that's why. So digital things can be edited anytime. Printing cannot be. Published book, once it is published, is published. There is no chance of anybody can edit. So whenever you access it, after publication, anytime, any day you access, there is no problem of changing. Whereas in online, things can be changed anytime. So this date and time is necessary. So you can say that on this day when I accessed, it was there. Now probably it is not there. That is why. So access thing is required when you use online resources, not for the printing things. Okay, then Bhavyata also presented well. It was well prepared one on addiction. Well, detailed study was presented about all the things and connected with characters and themes also. And answers were also given very well, detailed answers. Those who are not giving, few of you are there who are not giving proper answers, trying to run away from question, but try to give a full answer, try to understand the question in whatever capacity you can, and try to give full length answer. That was given quite well by Bhavyata. Drashti also did well. Iceberg theory was presented well. Stephens was used and that was cited also very well. Wherever it was required, that was done. And one thing that was lacking was examples from the novel or novels, like those who cited, like Stephens, or they might have used Old Man and the Sea as the best example of iceberg theory. But can you find that in the novel that you are studying? That you have to see. Maybe Old Man and the Sea is more perfect example for that. You may find that For Whom the Bell Tolls is not also. So that way you can counter argue that everywhere does that work. Is it working in the novel that you are studying also or not? That way you have to see, and you have to give examples for that. Gayatri also did well. It was a good, well-prepared one. North of Fry you used as a symbol for fog, and three articles were used, and from all the three you have taken different texts. So that was also a very good idea to take one in Bleak House. McClure you used for Bleak House. Heart for the Darkness, was Griebel's article. And Shoe Bridge, that article was used for Long Day's Journey. So it was a good idea that three separate articles are there, but you are combining them together. Right? You are connecting three separate articles, and all of them are talking about form, but in different texts, and you connected. That also was a good point that you have made and collected also very well. This resource you used, let me share this slide. This is from John Carroll University, and they have the resource of master's essays. Like, so this all students also must be doing, like you, masters in that university, and they have a very good collection of the things where all these essays are put. So this is one that you have taken. Can see Shoe Bridge. And full length article also we can see here. This is the full length one. And it is obviously very good work. Thesis, kind of a thesis, essay, senior honors projects it is. So it is of but it is of a student. There is one thing. It is of a student. So it will have its own limitation, but still it is of quite a good quality, which you can say that your assignments also should be of this quality. You also can think of that your assignments or your thinking activities can also be of this quality. And at the end of this essay, the citations and other things are given, notes, footnotes are given, work cited are also given quite appropriately. Hanging paragraph style is there, alphabetical order also is there. Now, the very first citation is very interesting, which should be cited when you deal with Eugene O'Neill, that is Travis Bogart. Travis Bogart's book is Contour in Time. Contour, C-O-N-T-O-U-R, Contour in Time, the plays of Eugene O'Neill. This is considered one of the very well-known, well-researched book. And once you find that book in the work cited, you feel that this work must be a good work. And this was not cited in any of your works. So somehow you are not able to reach to this resource. But how you reach somewhere, from there you can go to qualitative resource. That also can be the way to reach at the quality. But this is Oxford University Press, published in 1988. And the work should be referred for this, all the plays of this. So this you can remember when you write your answers in university. Also, Travis Bogart can be remembered when you refer to Eugene O'Neill. So this was a good resource, and also to see that how universities are putting the things on their websites. That also is something to be seen. Yesterday also we have seen where theses were uploaded. We also have thesis uploading system by UGC on InflipNet, but our universities are not in this way thinking about uploading students' work on their platforms and other things also. And that also is a huge gap between like world-class universities and if you want to sound with the world, third-class universities. So then what is that? These are the gaps where how you do things with the digital repositories and how you give exposure to your students, to whatever your students study, what way you try to expose them. That all matters in this. As we're talking about resources, let me just keep on sharing. This is a very good resource. Many of you have cited this in Transcendentalism. Okay, so it is a very standard from Stanford University, a Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So this is also a very good qualitative resource. The another one, this also was cited by some of you. I think this was in Transcendentalism. Gopi has cited this. From this you have taken. So this also is a good resource, Association of Asian Studies. And this things like Kent Bicknell and Todd Lewis. This was the cited one in this. So this also is a good resource. Then this was also cited by who has, so Hetal has cited this resource. Beth Winstra. Beth Winstra's Long Day's Journey into Night is a review of a play. There is a play performance in April 2012 in Massachusetts, and Beth Winstra might have gone to watch the play. And after watching the play, the review is given. So that was a play performance. And so this all things you can write when you write your slide. That Winstra in a review of a play performance on this day, this date, here, mentions this all thing. So it makes your point very clear that this is not a review of a book or a printed play. It is a review of a performance. So this is a Muse JHU. Project Muse is again a qualitative resource. Whenever you reach here, you can blindly rely, but things are not freely available here. This also are asking for $19 for a digital article. If you want this, then so it is a very costly thing. So that also you can see that how qualitative things are quite costly also for us to access. and we require lots of budget provisions for purchasing this e-resources for our research work also. This was in last one. Okay, we'll come to this. This just keep in mind. This is also a good site, Vaishnava Internet News Agency. But this article on Thoreau is quite interesting on this site, which you can cite when you want to refer to the influence of India on transcendentalism. So several examples are given in this site also, where he himself is citing, his work is cited, where he is writing about river Ganga, reading Bhagavad Gita in this forest near Pond Walden, when he is staying there for 2 years in the forest near Pond Walden, and he writes a book known as Walden, where he refers to this. So several quotes are given directly from his work, which is very important to keep in mind. Okay, so these are some of the things. Okay? So now we're talking about Gayatri did good work with those things. Ghanshyam also did well reading the things about Code Hero, Hemingway Hero. And you also try to connect that with this superheroes things. Like Superman or Batman or James Bond examples are there. But when you find similarities, it is also important to find why they still cannot be considered as Hemingway Code Hero. There is still something that it is because these are popular cinema. And popular cinema, either Hollywood or Bollywood, they are still dealing with a kind of a fantasy or fantastic element, where hero ultimately remains untouched. Like people are aware that nothing will happen to James Bond, nothing will happen to Spider-Man. They will remain alive. That is for sure. So that is how the point becomes very significant or very important there. Now, in realistic one, that doesn't happen. They get terribly injured. They may die also. So that makes that difference. So Batman, for example, fits several aspects of Hemingway Code Hero. He is man who lives with grace under pressure. These are characteristics of what we consider it as this. Let me share the screen so you can read also. You are getting late, then you can leave. If you have bus to leave, then you can leave. So this you can see. Grace under pressure, showing bravery and endurance in the face of danger. These are Hemingway's heroes, and he himself was that kind of a person who would go on a battlefield also, as a journalist also, or as a driver also of an ambulance or the things there. So he is also a man of principle, adhering to a strict code of justice. So that we find, even when he puts himself in harm's way. However, this is very important. Unlike Hemingway's protagonist, Batman is a fictional character who operates in a world of fantasy and technology, rather than the gritty realism of Hemingway's story. This gritty realism is something very important that one can see there. So writing this plays a vital role. The same thing. So as such, it's difficult to say definitively whether they can be considered Hemingway Code heroes, but they certainly share some common characteristics with the archetype. And this also we can see about James Bond also. Bond is a spy who operates in the world of high-tech gadgets. Hemingway Code Hero, on the other hand, operates in a world of gritty realism. Hemingway characters are often flawed and struggling to find meaning in a world that is often hostile and indifferent. They do not have access to high-tech gadgets or the resources of government agency. Rather, they rely on their own inner strength to survive. These are some, again, very important points, though with similarities, slightly things change among them also. So reaching here is again very important when you compare. So if you can reach at this level of seeing the comparison, then it becomes a good, a little bit overstretched comparison also. Okay, then Gopi on Transcendentalism. Okay. That was also good as such. Hetal also presented well. Natural language, some good examples were given from the play, and the significance of that also was given, that how it speaks about naturalistic language. Hina also did well. The last one about this, wherein you can Emerson or Thoreau citing themselves, what they say, that they were influenced by Indian philosophy or not. That is very important. What others say, it is fine. Have they said anywhere that they have read Bhagavad Gita, they have read Ved and Upanishad, and which part of that they are influenced by? And they have written also. Transcendentalists were influenced. Even German transcendentalists were also influenced by the Indian philosophy and thought. So during those years, 19th century, lots of translation was happening here. Those who came with East India Company, the first Orientalists like William Jones, they all, even the judges of Supreme Courts, they were, when they are working here, they are learning Sanskrit language. Many of them are learning and translating and taking it back, going back to America or UK. So they themselves were very much interested in the knowledge or the scriptures and the books that they found here. So many were learning Sanskrit language also, and others were hiring people to write. ત્યારે લગિયા રાખવા પડતા કે ટાઈપ કેવું તો હતું નહીં કે ફોટો પાડો અને PDF કરીને સીધું અમેરિકા મોકલી દેવાય. એવું તો થતું હતું, ગૂગલ ટ્રાન્સલેટ હોય એટલે આ ફોટો લીધો ને આ ટ્રાન્સલેટ. It was not like that. So you have to hire people who are scholars in Sanskrit language. You pay money and બેસાડીને લખાવો તમે, પછી તમે સમજીને એનો અંગ્રેજી કરો, and then you take back. And then back in Western countries also, people were influenced, and we have seen that influence of T.S. Eliot, also T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf, many others, even Transcendentalists were also there. So what they say is very important. How they write, that is also should be cited there. Okay, so that was the last one. Now tomorrow, even today, you can try when you are asked a question, you can and you answered also. Question, you may be satisfied or not satisfied also with the answer that you have given, but you can try this, that ask the same question to ChatGPT and see what answer you get, and then compare your answer and ChatGPT's answer. Your answer also is recorded, so you can watch a part of a video that what was your answer and what is ChatGPT's answer, and then compare and see whether you are smart or ChatGPT is smart in giving the answer. So that activity also you can do in comparing the things, and you can learn how to give better answers also. Perhaps ChatGPT can help you in how to give better answers also. Tomorrow when you prepare, I will put a WhatsApp message also, but you also convey this to morning session also. We have not conveyed this to the morning session student, that whatever topic you are working on, now those who have not selected the topic, you try to select the topic which are not selected. Some of you have already typed, everybody has not typed. So now those who are going to select, you see that repetition is avoided. So that way, if you are still working on the topic and planning on which to do, then select the topic which is not selected. But whichever topic you select, also after completing your PPT, ask ChatGPT about that. And whatever response you get, prepare 1 or 2 slides and put it in your PPT. This was the response of ChatGPT. It may be right or wrong, whatever it is. Even if it is completely humbug, then also. But whatever you get, either screenshot or copy paste kind of a thing that you do. And at least 2 slides you have to prepare on this, asking about your topic to ChatGPT and bringing it. So tomorrow we will see that also, that what kind of responses you are getting through ChatGPT. All other slides will be the meherbani of Google search engine. 2 slides will be meherbani of ChatGPT. And if 1 or 2 slides may be your own, it will be very good. A couple of slides if you add your own, then it will be blessing Otherwise, Google Mahadev, and now ChatGPT, we will ask, give 2 slides on that also. Okay, so we end our session here.